Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Talking About Marketing is a podcast for business owners and leaders, produced by my dad, Steve Davis, and his colleague at Talked About Marketing, David Olney, in which they explore marketing through the lens of their own 4 Ps: person, principles, problems, and perspicacity. Yes, you heard that correctly. Apart from their love of words, they really love helping people. So they hope this podcast will become a trusted companion on your journey in business.
David?
Yes.
You're just too good to be true. I can't take my eyes off of you, and you'd be like heaven to touch. I want to hold you. So this is actually going a bit weird, isn't it?
I'm trying not to giggle hysterically.
This will make sense soon, I hope.
Our 4 Ps. Number 1, person. The aim of life is self-development, to realise one's nature perfectly. That is what each of us is here for. Oscar Wilde.
David, in the person segment, I want to start at the 4 seasons, and you'll be thankful not with the song.
I'm okay with the song as long as you're over there.
And it is in response to reading an amazing book. In fact, what's the book called?
Unreasonable Hospitality.
Thank you. Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. That's how I'm pronouncing his name. Have you heard it pronounced any differently?
No, that's as good as I can manage to.
Yeah. So Will is, he's a force within the hospitality world. They had 11 Madison Place, really famous restaurant, was dubbed the best restaurant in the world, among other things. But before we get into that, into the principal segment, because there's so much that we can learn from him, we want to actually learn from his story. And David, I think it really touched you. You remembered it fondly, this story of something that happened when he was 12 years old at the Four Seasons restaurant in New York. Do you want to paint a picture for us?
Absolutely. I'll go back a little bit earlier. So Will's dad is a successful chef who got into restaurant management, and his mum was an airline stewardess. In the era they were called stewardesses. So we can tell this is the 70s.
Yep.
And Will's mum had some health crises, resulting in surgery, resulting in becoming quadriplegic. So Will's childhood was not the easiest thing in the world. He was trying to be helpful and step up. But for his 12th birthday, his dad took him to the Four Seasons, one of the best restaurants in America. At that point, a very good restaurant, maybe not perhaps one of the best restaurants in the world. And his dad had got him a beautiful blue blazer and a crisp shirt, so he looked right in the environment, and Will was utterly blown away that here he wasn't a 12-year-old child. Here he was a guest being treated, like every other guest, like someone who mattered. And at one point during the dinner, he dropped his napkin, and he was about to dive off his chair and grab it. And the server said, "Sir, don't worry about it," and just got him a new one. Gave him the new one, and then picked up the one that fell on the floor. It was no big deal. He wasn't made to feel like a 12-year-old who'd done something stupid in an amazing environment. And Will makes the point in the book, that is when he realised he wanted to, work in, own, be a part of a restaurant like the Four Seasons that provided amazing hospitality. And from that moment onwards, he was inspired to get there. He was excited about the idea from watching his dad work, but he got a whole new sense of his future when he went to the Four Seasons for his birthday.
And the reason that we're sharing this in the person segment is that story of that moment, that aha moment of now I know what it is that I must do is something that many of the business people we mix with have had. Not everyone, but I think the lucky ones in a way, because they have this inner sense of energy that sees them through all sorts of things. And as we were planning this, David, it reminded me that I had that moment for my initial career in radio when I was 12, which I just realised the same age as Will in that book. I was at home on my bed listening to 5AD, and it was a Saturday afternoon from memory, there was a crossfade from Deep Purple, Smoke on the Water, into racy Oh Carol. And just think about that for a moment. That's one of the world's worst crossfades you'll ever hear in your life. And I thought to myself, wow, that would be an easy job, and you'd get the girls. That's what I want to be. So it's not profound like Will's, but gee, it stuck. And no one, teachers who thought I could fly to the moon, none of them could talk me out of this idea I had. So much so that it was year 11, he had to put down 3 careers so the career counsellor could talk to you. And I said, I only want to do a radio announcer. They said, no, you've got to write down 3. I said, I only want to be, they write down 3. So I wrote President of the USA, NASA astronaut, radio announcer. So of course then I got into radio. That was my first career. Had 18 beautiful years doing that full on. It was excellent. So that is a beautiful thing that comes from having that knowledge. Have you had that similar sort of thing?
I had a very different experience. I remember sitting in social studies class being taught by a wonderful human being called Bruce Ormond at age 15 and being told we had to pick where to do our first lot of work experience. And sitting there as the only blind kid in the class, in the school, thinking, I don't even know what I can do. I don't even know what anyone will let me do. I simply don't know if I have a go what I can succeed at. Oh dear, this is bad. And after Bruce had talked about we all had to pick, something to do, he's like, Mr. Olney, what do you want to do? And I quietly went and talked to him and said, I've got no clue. Come back to class, the next class, probably the next day or the day after, can't remember anymore. And Bruce goes, I've sorted out your work experience. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I've gone and talked to a law firm in Port Adelaide. You're doing your work experience there. Oh, okay. Why? Well, you're very smart. You can argue anything. And you're impossible, when you decide you're going to basically win at something. So, seems appropriate. I'm like, oh, okay. So, in my case, I went along, did my work experience, found it to be a great experience. Really wasn't sure I wanted to be a lawyer from that experience. But what it did teach me was something that also stuck. And that was, hang on. To be a lawyer, I would need to get good marks at the end of high school. Well, I probably need to get good marks to do lots of things I haven't thought of yet, because I never would have thought of a lawyer if Mr. Ormond hadn't thought of a lawyer. So the thing I took away was, I don't know what I'm going to do, I don't know what I'm going to be, but I better make sure that anything I do well enough, they invite me back, and that I do it well enough that it's persuasive enough to to get people to let me do other things. So I sort of learnt the lesson of how you do anything is how you do everything, and just kept applying it with whatever option seemed like the best one in front of me.
So hold that thought, because that's going to come back as a theme in the next segment. I guess to round off the person segment, the reason we wanted to share this is we'd both kind of forgotten these stories, and I think it's really nice to dust them off and retell them to someone who cares, because they can just rekindle that inner spark, that inner ball of fire of energy that can propel us. If you don't have a story like that, that's fine. You've found a different pathway here. But if you have and you haven't dusted it off and given it a run a little while, take this segment as your permission to go and do that.
Our 4 Ps. Number 2, Principles. You can never be overdressed or overeducated. Oscar Wilde.
Will Guidara, one of the things that he makes very clear in his whole journey of running 11 Madison Place is intentionality in service. He sees there's great power that comes from not just serving people, but doing it with great intentionality. And in fact, I want to just start this scene by having a listen to him tell it. He tells it so well.
We needed to be operating at a high level of precision all the time. To get the staff tuned into the correct frequency, we asked them to start thinking that way as soon as they walked in the door. We trained the people setting the dining room to place every plate so that if a guest flipped it over to see who had made it, the Limoges stamp would be facing them, right side up. That's ridiculous, right? Utterly unreasonable. Maybe 1 or 2 guests would flip that plate in a month. Most nights, nobody did. Even if they did, would they guess that the placement had been intentional? And some people probably turned over the plate in a way we didn't anticipate, so that the manufacturer's stamp wasn't face up at all. That was okay, because whether someone flipped it or not, that perfectly placed plate had already done what it needed to do. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And we found, over and over, that precision in the smallest of details translated to precision in bigger ones. By asking the person setting the dining room to place each plate with total concentration and focus, we were asking them to set the tone for how they'd do everything over the course of the service. How they'd greet our guests, walk through the dining room, communicate with their colleagues, pour the champagne to begin a meal, and the cup of coffee to end it. There's a story about Walt Disney challenging his Imagineers when they were creating the first animatronics for the Enchanted Tiki Room. The Imagineers were convinced they had produced the most lifelike, detailed animatronic bird possible. But Disney wasn't satisfied. Real birds breathed, he pointed out. The chest expanded and contracted. This bird wasn't breathing. Frustrated, the Imagineers reminded him there would be hundreds of distracting elements in the tiki room, including waterfalls, light, smoke, totem poles, and singing flowers. Nobody was going to notice a single bird, whether it was breathing or not. To which Disney responded, "People can feel perfection. Maybe people don't notice every single individual detail, but in aggregate, they're powerful. In any great business, most of the details you closely attend to are ones that only a tiny, tiny percentage of people will notice. But if I could institute a system that demanded that the entire team think carefully about even the most rudimentary of tasks, I was creating a world in which intention was the standard, and our guests could feel it."
Wow, there is a lot there, but do you concur, David, with his rationale that making sure the plates were put there in a way that if a guest picked them up, that the logo would be the right way, depending on how they picked them up, etc., and whether or not they did, there was still value in adhering to that? Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. Like, this is something I worked out for myself, as I said in the previous segment, but for me, the first time I really saw this in an absolute all of an environment was when I started training people within Special Operations Command, where everyone did everything properly. And I'd be living in an officer's mess for a week, training very capable people for a week in a world where everything was done precisely, because by doing it precisely, it made everyone else's day easier and better. And being in that bubble, realizing it's not just a bubble you can have on your own, that it's a bubble you can have with hundreds of other people. I can see why it's so intoxicating when you're in a culture that works in that way.
There's a couple of layers to this, because initially I came to this from the perspective of us all reflecting on our customers, our clients. But the other part of this, the nuance, is internal reduction of friction in the way that we run the entity we're working in, if you are doing everything right. And I love that saying. It's sticking with me so much. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. It just means that you don't just put the stapler back roughly where it was. You put it back exactly where it was. If you happen to see the paper in the printer get to a certain level, you top it up. And it marries with something that's been on my mind and I'm wanting to chat with my daughters about and how we run our household, is this concept, it's come out of my subconscious, I might have read it somewhere, of the next person. What will this place be like for the next person, which might be you or it might be someone else. But if you use the last sheet of toilet paper, you use the last squirt of detergent, you use the last free lolly that you give your clients, and so the next one, it's going to be embarrassing. If you take responsibility of leaving things right for the next person, I think that augurs well for your experience together as well as to the public to be smooth and positive.
I absolutely agree, and I think I probably learnt that next person concept from my Hungarian grandmother. She did everything with that mindset for as long as I can remember. Everything about the farm, everything about her kitchen, everything about everything she did was, if something wouldn't work well the next time, or everything necessary wasn't there, she sorted that out before she walked away. And as the oldest grandchild, I was sort of expected to be the one who followed that logic. So it's probably why when Bruce Ormond arranged my work experience for me, I kind of put two and two together and went, something I've never really thought about from Gran is now being made very deliberate. So again, the word Will uses intentionality. The minute you realise something you're doing accidentally can be done intentionally, and once you do it intentionally, you can see the positive benefits. Like, intentionality is great. It doesn't make you work harder. It makes you so much happier when you see the impact you're having in the world.
So the main thing for this segment and reflecting on Will's book, and I think we're going to have to bring Will's book back for another episode because there's a whole lot we haven't got into here that I think bears telling. But for now, it's the challenge of reflecting on how you do things internally. Because I think it was last episode, David, I was frantically trying to find notes that I put aside, and I had 3 different ways that I might have done it. And that's where I went, David, the way you do one thing, the way you do everything, I think I've failed and made my life harder here by not adhering to one thing. And yet today when I was looking up things, I could find them straight away.
Everything was where you wanted it because you had your little reminder.
The way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Our 4 Ps. Number 3, problems. I asked the question for the best reason possible. Simple curiosity. Oscar Wilde.
Something slightly different in the problem segment this week, and it's the problem of jobs or projects that stall for some reason. They get into some proverbial too hard basket, and I just wanted to reflect briefly on our website in a week offer that we have at the moment, in which we pledge that we will turn your website around in a week. It'll be done beautifully and thoughtfully and thoroughly with unique writing, and it will all be delivered in 1 week. And we don't use this podcast to flog something, and that's not the reason we're bringing it up here. We're bringing it up because I came up with that and chatted with David in the process of developing it, because I've been reflecting on different bottlenecks that happen from time to time in website projects, not the bigger ones, but often the smaller projects. And I wanted to eradicate them. And I think it's an osmosis effect from everything we've been talking about, David, over the last few seasons, gradually working its way through. And so where my brain is at the moment is, if we see something that's getting stuck, how can I unstuck it? This is just, I can't even pick which writer this is from. This is an amalgam of lots of them.
Yeah, too many things have come together now in a way where we're starting to struggle to remember which book an idea was in. We remember the idea and we've linked it to 3 other ideas, but where it came from anymore is now. We're going to have to start listening to earlier episodes.
So the thing about the website in a week offer is the blank page problem was one of the things I was trying to deal with. And that's where, to keep costs down for people with these websites, I would often have said to people, look, we can make sure we can build it properly, we can put your content in, and you're welcome to craft your own content. You know your story, you know your business, and that way you don't have to pay for us to write it. Stupid in a way, David, because writing is one of the things we do, but it was a competing set of values in me. One of them was help the client save money. And the other one, of course, is let me loose. I want to write. It's a wrestling. If you'd met me years ago, you would have slapped my face a few times, wouldn't you?
No, first time we met for podcasting, you said, I love the sound of my own voice. I just love talking to a microphone. You made it very clear very quickly that it's just your happy place. And it's not love of the sound of your own voice. It's love of words and communicating and making people smile. You love to write not so you can go, wow, look how clever I am. It's, wow, look at the alliteration. Look at the impact.
Well, what I ended up doing was letting people suffer through paralysis because they'd sit at their blank sheet and then I'd wonder why I hadn't heard from them for many weeks. And so that's one of the aspects of Website in a Week is to say, you know what, don't worry about that. I will interview you. Give me 30 minutes of your time. I'll interview you. I'll get everything I need to make that happen. Take it off your plate. The other one was the deadline dilemma, where I also didn't want to be that obnoxious human bearing down on people, cracking the whip to meet a deadline, and that's bitten me in the backside because what happens is it keeps getting put off and put off and put off. Again, David, I needed your face slap.
Well, we needed to read books like Donald Miller and Blair Enns and go, we're the expert and we have to provide the simple 3 to 5 point plan. So we did.
We did, but we should have also put a deadline in it as well.
That's a work in progress.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that this is designed to deal with, is we all agree up front that this is going to happen. Don't take your time. We're going to make sure it's done. And the other one is we might have actually got everything done, but we still need the client, and this hasn't changed. The client has to give approval that this is ready to go live. And then we hit the perfection trap. I'm not sure if it's 100% yet, or I've just seen a competitor try this and I'm wondering if we should try that. And this is a different flavour of something that can impact some people and hold them back for a myriad other reasons, and probably internally, that is self-doubt, all those sorts, imposter syndrome, I can't look that good. And that's something else we're trying to do away with, is impressing on people that every website is always a work in progress. There is no such thing as a finished website. They're malleable, they're flexible, they're digital, for crying out loud. They are to be generated. What we need to do is, I think Seth Godin loves this, the minimum viable product. Not that it's quite that, it's a bit better than that.
Yeah, it's fit for purpose at an absolute minimum.
Yes, and just get it out there. Do the Steve Jobs, just ship it. And ultimately, I think, and this is where you would have probably a few thoughts on this, David, but my research was telling me that a lot of scientists believe we are hardwired to avoid embarrassment. And if you think about it, you put what you're going to do out there on the world, on the world stage for people to see. You just open yourself up for people to critique and ridicule you in some people's minds, and that's enough to make people hesitant. Do you agree that we're hardwired that way?
Absolutely. I think the best simple explanation I've read of this lately is Will Storr in his most recent book, A Story is a Deal. He makes the point, anytime you're talking to someone, whatever you're suggesting is going through 2 filters. The person is thinking, how is this going to affect my identity, my sense of self? And how is whatever we're talking about going to affect my status in the group? So make sure whatever you're pitching is going to make them feel good about themselves and improve their status. So, website in a week where we use our expertise, we give you something that's good enough to get you going and will only get better over time. That fits well with identity happy, status improved.
And in sharing that in the problem segment, I hope maybe it's a model for you reflecting on different things that could be different bottlenecks in your business with your customers and clients. That just took me a few months of reflection to break it down, reverse engineer, and come to market with a solution that deals with those issues. The journey continues.
Our 4 Ps. Number 4. Perspicacity. The one duty we owe to history is to rewrite it. Oscar Wilde.
Our regular contributor to Talking About Marketing, Belle Baker, has given us another one, David. Yeah.
Belle always sends in the best things.
She does. She found something by, I think it's pronounced Sarah Levinger, or Levinger, who had commented, not sure where, somewhere on social media, 15 years as a marketer, and I had no idea this was a thing. People are 45% more likely to buy bundles if the mental math is easy. That is, customers can easily divide the price by the number of items in the bundle. Like this, 6 shirts for $24, not this, 6 shirts for $27. I reflected on that for just a moment because my intuition was that people are less and less doing mental mathematics these days because the digital devices we've got do them for us. And so I'm not sure how relevant that would be in this age. What do you think, David?
I think any person who whips out a piece of paper and a pencil and does the maths to work out, oh, it's this value, this price, oh, that's a good deal, can probably do the maths in their head. And anyone else is going to decide whether they like the shirts or not. I think we're in an era where the technology means we're not going to work it out ourselves. But maybe if inflation keeps being an issue and scarcity keeps becoming an issue, it would be in our interest to say, $4 per shirt if you buy the bundle of 6. So it's up to us to be better communicators either way.
Yeah, and not actually making it obfuscating, not making it harder for people. Just tell them they're $4 each.
Yeah.
Or do what the Woolies and the big supermarkets do. They're $4 each, or buy 6 for $27.
Yeah.
And suck people in that way. So that's one aspect. And I feel like that might have been a thing, but I think it's less of a thing as we outsource the use of our brain to electrical devices. But it did remind me, when Belle sent this in, of something else I remember in my early days of marketing, the price denomination effect, which basically means if you think of all the notes, the different denominations of notes we had, like in the old days, 1 and 2, but now $5 note, $10 note, 20, 50, 100. The theory within marketing is if the price of your product sits just up but within one of those note denominations, you get away with it. People are much more likely, if they were going to buy, to go ahead and purchase your product. If it's gone over $21.50, then it just causes a little bit of concern. David, we're not using as much cash money these days. Do we also spell, and this is the perspicacity segment where we look at things, how things stand the test of time, do you think the days are numbered or gone for the price denomination effect?
Certainly numbered. I think the big issue people focus on now is not necessarily that price point, is it above any of those denominations? Because I know a lot of people who haven't handled banknotes since COVID. So some people are now 5 years into not handling money. I think the big issue is now going, what's the surcharge for using my credit card or using my phone to pay for this? Are you going to charge me another how many %? So I think that's more interesting to people than does it cross some barrier of a physical denominator.
So there you go. I think we've made the decision, haven't we, David, with the judgment that those math-based and note denomination-based theories have probably had their day.
Just communicate better.
Oh, and I suppose you want change for that, don't you?
Probably, but not Ratley coins because I've got nowhere to put them anymore.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.